On behalf of Summit Debate and National Debate Forum, welcome to Summit Debate Online. Today we're going to be discussing public forum tournaments for the first couple of months of the year, specifically the Yale Tournament, the Bronx Tournament, and the Apple Valley Tournament. I'm Josh Zoffer, and on my right are David Walchak, Joe Eichenbaum, Jesse Freeman, Aaron Schifrin, and Brendan Patrick. So, let's get started. Let's start with the Yale Tournament. Let's talk first about the students who go to the Yale Tournament and the types of debaters that you're going to encounter at this tournament.
I'd say it's primarily Northeast schools, a lot of New York schools, but they definitely pull from around the region. I mean, I went to Whitman, which is Mid-Atlantic, and we still went, but there was definitely a national presence, but primarily Northeast.
One of the things that you'll notice about the Yale Tournament is that very few West Coast schools tend to go, and even few Midwestern schools tend to go. It is primarily not just an East Coast tournament, but a Northeast tournament. So you're going to be dealing primarily with students and coaches who are coming from the Northeast, from schools in New York City, Massachusetts, etc. You'll also encounter Mid-Atlantic teams from North Carolina, Maryland, and the like. Let's talk now a little bit about the judge pool and who you might have watching your rounds and making your decisions.
I found that at least during prelims, we had primarily students who were hired on, or coaches, and then there were times parents, but they all seemed to be pretty aware about the activity. I had a lot of flow judges, certainly some who didn't, but primarily flow judges, and then, yeah, a good share of students who've been either were still involved in the activity or had previously been involved in the activity.
So one interesting thing about the Yale Tournament is that it's actually run by the Yale debate team. They're the ones who are in charge of it. So what that means is that the people running the tournament primarily are going to be former debaters who are extremely competitive on the national circuit. As a result, they have a policy where they try to hire as many former debaters as possible so that they can stack their judge pool with judges from top Northeastern universities who can bring you the best judging possible. The other thing that's really important to remember about the Yale Tournament, specifically in out rounds, is that the people judging those rounds are going to be members of the Yale debate team. Now what that means for you as a competitor is that most of these people are going to be parliamentary debaters. That means that they do a form of college debate that focuses certainly on the flow and on argumentation, but also to a large extent on rhetoric as well, and that doesn't allow evidence. So in late out rounds, in quarters, and specifically, and especially in semis and finals, you're going to have judges who are going to want to see you making really cogent arguments and are going to be following you very closely on the flow, but aren't going to want to see extremely progressive link stories and big impacts to things like resource security and things like that. So pay attention to your rhetoric, the way that you're presenting, and to the types of arguments you're using, but remember that these are experienced judges who are going to be able to follow your arguments in all likelihood regardless. Does anyone else want to talk about a little bit about what actually is particularly interesting about the Yale Tournament or things to do in New Haven while you're there?
I mean, definitely take advantage of the fact that you're at Yale, see the campus. It's absolutely beautiful. Trying to think other restaurants or other things you should do. Didn't you have?
Oh, sure. Pepe's Pizza, a famous New Haven institution. You should check that one out. Otherwise, enjoy the architecture. Yale's a beautiful place. So let's move on and talk about the Bronx Science Tournament. So the Bronx Science Tournament occurs in mid-October at the Bronx School of Science in New York City. So let's start off with the pool.
I think the pool at Bronx Science is largely, again, a Northeastern, sort of similar to a Yale-sized pool, but they do draw, I know there's some Midwestern teams that still go to Bronx Science, and it gets a little bit probably more of a national pool than you'd see at Yale, with a similar Northeastern, probably specifically New York focus.
I think that also the Bronx Science Tournament is a tournament that stock has been rapidly rising. Each year it seems as if they get bigger and bigger. A few years ago they were a SEMS bid, then they were a quarters bid, and now they're a full-fledged Octas bid to the TOC. This is a tournament that gets bigger and better and more prestigious every year, and I assume that that trend will only continue and it will only become more expansive.
And so while the teams are very competitive at Bronx, I think the number of prelims at Bronx gives you enough opportunities to succeed. Unlike Yale, Bronx has 7 prelim rounds, and also after every preliminary round, they'll post results, including your speaker points and who won and lost. So for debaters to whom that's important, I think Bronx would be an excellent selection of a tournament.
Bronx has also recently introduced a round robin, and although I never attended, I know many people who have attended that.
Yeah, I guess to talk about the Bronx round robin, I attended the Bronx round robin and won it in its inaugural year. The Bronx round robin takes place in one day, and it had I think seven or eight highly competitive teams it's a fun time, and afterwards John Cruz rented out a Japanese restaurant, and it was a blast. The trophies are also sweet.
Yeah, John Cruz certainly loves his trophies.
Yeah,
So
without a doubt.
for him for that.
Great trophies, great food. The other thing to remember about Bronx is that because John Cruz puts such an emphasis on bringing in the best coaches and the best teams, he's likely to make sure that there are some really top quality teams there because he wants the competition to be at that level. And as a result, what we've seen is the trend that Joe talked about, where every year more and more top teams from around the circuit are attending this tournament, making it a tournament that you should certainly look into.
Also, one last thing on the Bronx tournament. We're talking about John Cruz trying to get the best teams out there every year. If you're a school looking for a more affordable tournament and you have the record to justify really being a star at a tournament, but maybe you don't live in that hot pocket of Northeastern dominance and Florida dominance, the Bronx tournament is a tournament that will do everything it can to get you to attend. And that's really something to consider when you're making your tournament selection.
So this includes a couple of things. The first of which is that you're able to house with other students at the Bronx tournament. Students who go to Bronx and are involved with the Bronx debate team. The family that hosted me was incredibly friendly. And the second way in which they really save you money is their Taste of the World option, which is, I think, home-cooked meals by Bronx Science mothers every night. The food is delicious and it's free, so that's a plus.
Ethan and I, being a team from Colorado, it's really hard for us to make it out to East Coast tournaments. It's like, cost is a factor that we definitely have to consider when we're choosing which tournaments we want to go to. So the fact that, John Cruz and Bronx Science make it such an affordable endeavor is it really was the main reason my partner and I chose to go to the tournament. And what really turned out to be a phenomenal choice because it's really cost effective. The fact that you don't have to pay for food and that you can get free housing is really, really helpful for those of us who are further away from the tournament.
I'd say the homestay is also an incredible experience, not just because it's affordable, but because it's a really great time and it's a really great opportunity to sort of meet people in the community and sort of form friendships. Unlike sort of just brief exposure to tournaments, which certainly can result in you being good buddies with another team. When you go and you stay with other people, it definitely takes it to a whole new level. Having met other people, I'm now friends with mothers and stayed with them was definitely a unique experience in and of itself. So.
Let's talk now a little bit about the judges in the pool at Bronx and what they're like.
I think the Bronx pool was interesting for me because I had a lot of parent judges, but at the same time, parent judges I had, I think, were pretty well informed about debate and just sort of the world as a whole. So while there were parent judges throughout the rounds, I never felt like the judges I had were too uninformed to really make a really quality decision in the rounds.
Yeah, and I know that John Cruz, again, the director of this tournament, loves to bring back old debaters to this tournament. So you will, compared to other high school run tournaments, you're going to see a lot of former debaters in the pool.
Yeah.
A lot of Bronx Science students, but a lot of other students as well. And again, those parents are Bronx School of Science parents, so there's a very qualified and very well-informed judge pool.
Yeah, especially as you get to late out rounds, you'll see a lot of cross-pollination with the LD pool. Bronx is not only an extremely competitive PF tournament, it also has a very solid LD pool. So especially towards later out rounds, I felt my judges were definitely all flowing and had a strong grasp of arguments. And I felt comfortable running more progressive link stories at Bronx than, say, I would have at Yale in late out rounds.
The last thing that let's talk about is, and this should be a pretty easy one, what to do while you're at the Bronx tournament in New York City.
Sure, I know Ethan and I definitely took the last day we were in the city to just go around and see New York. It was like a really great opportunity because we really don't get an opportunity to be out there that often. So, we went around the city, we went through Times Square, we did some touristy things, and I think that was a really great opportunity for us. And it sort of maximized like the cost effectiveness of the trip. We also did look at colleges in the area too, which was really helpful. Like the opportunity to go look at schools like NYU while we were there, and tour those schools and get an idea if there were schools we were interested in for the fall. Like that was really another reason to make the trip like worthwhile, was that we had that opportunity to explore schools in the area.
Bronx is also really cool because you can take the subway to the tournament. It's it's sometimes hard to rent a car or find a way to get to certain tournaments, but we took the subway right from our hotel through the Bronx to the school, and on top of that we passed Yankee Stadium, sort of saw the Bronx area, and just being able to see the Bronx a little bit was a nice experience.
Also, the fact that you could be staying with someone who really knows the ropes means you can have one, great recommendations, and two, probably transportation to a lot of the highlights of the Bronx. So if you have a chance to visit, say, the Bronx Zoo, that's a great opportunity.
And Central Park is a city unto itself. It is miles long, and you can spend 5 hours there. There's live music going on there, people selling their CDs. I can't recommend going to Central Park enough.
The last tournament we're going to talk about is the Apple Valley Tournament, which occurs early in November in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So it's a little bit further away, a little bit further north, but still a great tournament for you to go to. So guys, let's talk about first the students that you're going to see in the pool of this tournament.
I think Apple Valley's grown to be a progressively more national tournament. I've definitely run into California schools there, Southern schools there, Midwestern schools. I think it's a pretty nationalized pool, and definitely not Minnesota focused really in any way.
You will, though, see, as it's in the Midwest, you're going to see, along with the very well-known national teams, you're going to see a lot of Midwestern schools from parts of Illinois that you aren't used to, from Missouri, definitely from Minnesota. So this is a very diverse tournament. You have the national circuit, but you also have a very strong showing from the local circuit.
So with that in mind and all of the intersection of cultures that occurs at Apple Valley, I think it's one of the tournaments where adaptation is really important. And if you think that's one of your strengths, if you're able to adapt to lay judges and flow judges, or if you're able to create clash with like more traditional PF teams versus more progressive PF teams, it's a really great tournament to showcase that strength at.
I would say the judges are, at least in prelim rounds, primarily lay judges, so that's certainly something to keep in mind.
Anything else about the judges, guys, other than lay judges?
I think a lot of them were parents of debaters, so I think while they are lay judges, they're definitely interested in debate and often engaged in debate, so you don't have to concern yourself with somebody who comes into the round knowing nothing about debate, but they might have a different conception of what they expect in the round. So be ready to adapt to parents who might want, more decorum, public forum strictly as it was a few years ago, but at the same time be ready to adapt to a flow judge who might be a coach from another team at the tournament.
So watch out for panels in later rounds. They're very mixed.
Yeah.
Apple Valley loves to emphasize that it is a tournament that draws from the best of both sides of the debate community. So you're going to see panels that can have 2 lay judges and a flow judge, 2 flow judges and a lay judge. Make sure you toe that line.
I think the notion of the absolute lay judge is something that's increasingly fading from public forum debate, though. So to keep in mind, when we say lay judge, oftentimes these are, as we said earlier, parents who are involved in the activity and do understand argumentation. They just may not be voting directly off of the flow or flowing necessarily. They tend to take intensive notes and to be very attentive to the round. It's not as though they're spacing out and basing things solely off of perception.
So Joe and David, as 2-time champions of the Apple Valley Tournament, what tips do you have for competitors to win the tournament and to bring home the trophy?
I think we tried to maintain a good balance of sort of clear link stories that weren't too progressive and also have a rhetorical analysis behind them. Because we found with those panels that were part flow, part lay judges, that we needed, well-evidenced link stories that weren't going to go into, really grandiose impacts, but at the same time present these well-evidenced link stories with sort of a rhetorical, more loose, appealing style.
Yeah, and as far as November tournaments go, this is the tournament that you're not going to want to break out the brand new, extremely progressive argument. There is something to be said at Apple Valley for keeping it simple. Not keeping it stupid, but keeping it simple. The Glenbrooks, which follows, that's where maybe you want to go for your fantastic impacts, your fantastic new argument. Apple Valley is a great time to just be clear, crystallize, and make it make sense.
Yeah. Although I never won Apple Valley, it taught me a lot of lessons about how to make a very mixed and adaptable style as a debater. I remember dropping one of my out rounds because I was too technical and I was too fast. And that was really an important moment for me as a debater. And if you can get past this judge made a really silly decision, I think that Apple Valley can teach you a lot of valuable lessons because I definitely changed my style and was more successful because of the lessons I learned at Apple Valley.
So let's wrap this up with one final question. Things to do while you were in Minneapolis at the Apple Valley Tournament.
I couldn't recommend the Mall of America more strongly. As a person who loved the Mighty Ducks movies when I was younger, there's always that scene where they skipped school and went to the Mall of America for a day, and so I always wanted to relive that experience. So, unfortunately and fortunately, after I dropped from the tournament my junior year, we got to spend the rest of the day at the Mall of America. And definitely one of the highlights of sort of my travel experiences for debate.
Downtown Minneapolis is also really fun. There's, skyways to walk and, downtown to see. It's a cool city, so it's probably worth exploring if you don't hit up the Mall of America.
those two are tremendous, and I do just want to say about Apple Valley, because this is the last question. This is a tournament where you have the potential as a team to win not 1, 2, 3, but 4 iPod Nanos. You get iPod Nanos if you are the winner of the tournament and if you're the top speakers. So keep that in mind. If you're in the market for a new iPod Nano, Apple Valley might be the tournament for you.
And with that, guys, we're going to wrap things up. Thanks for watching.